My name's Frank Dukes, and I'm director of the Institute for Environmental Negotiation, which is actually at the University of Virginia. So I was brought in by Dr. Ruminski and the other project leaders with the support of the macro funding to help with the facilitation and help think through how best this dialogue can be held. So that's been my role. Well, I feel like people have really welcomed me. So I feel like it's a little bit of a second home, coming to the beautiful mountains and then being able to see some of the, obviously the campus, but also the downtown. And most of our meetings have been held at the Lyric Theater, which has an interesting history. I try to either stay at a hotel or meet dinner at different restaurants every time that I'm here. So getting to know the different parts of the place. So my experience has been very welcoming, and that people, when they participate in the dialogues, they're really glad that they've participated in the dialogues. They're glad that they've had a chance to talk to people who have different experiences and come from different backgrounds. So the experience with the dialogues is really helping think through from the beginning. I mean, I know that the people who were convening the dialogue, so Dr. Ruminski and other colleagues, had a sense of what they wanted to have happen, but wanted myself and Marvin Johnson to help figure out what might they actually look like. How can we learn from some of the best practices from other communities? So my experience has been one of working with a project leadership team about, well, what can we do? What makes sense? How do we do that? And then coming into the several dialogues that we've held, each of them different, each of them having different people attending, having different sort of energy. They've all been positive. I've heard from lots of people afterwards how much they appreciated that. And learning, I think, as we go. I think even though we're supposedly the experts, it's a learning process for us too, because every situation's different and there's no blueprint for saying, oh, if you bring people together like this, then out pops at the other end some canned wonderful solution. So experience has been a learning one, lots of engagement, lots of energy, a few challenges of coordination and challenges of always when you're working with a student population that's transient, and but overall really positive. I think one key element that I've learned is how much both the students really appreciate when community members turn out and they get to talk to and hear from community members and vice versa. I know that there's really very few forums that allow for that sort of mixed engagement between students and community members, and I know that a lot of the students have been really excited at that, and certainly the community members have also. So the excitement that people have about that, I think I've learned a lot also about some of the community dynamics, some of the history, and the importance of that history to the town-gown relations as well. So that thinking of tensions, you can think of that at a couple of different levels. So there's one is just a sort of creative tension when you have university and you have community members and they don't know a whole lot about each other and learning about one another. One is a sort of tension of how much do you want to turn over leadership and initiative to groups that might involve students who may be very well intentioned, but they're not here, for the whole year, and some of them graduate. And to what extent do you need to show other types of leadership as well? I think in terms of the substantive tension, I don't know that it's really unusual. I don't have experience with lots of different university community interaction, but I do some, and there's always going to be some differences from a large institution, the university, which may have a very beneficial impact on the community, but nonetheless, there will be nuisance issues. There will be issues of, students generally stay up later, party longer, perhaps have less investment in a neighborhood, than the people in the neighborhood might have. And on the other hand, the students may feel as though they're not welcomed as much as they should be, given what they're contributing, they're paying in rent, and the other benefits that they bring to the community. I don't think there is a formula. There are best practices, and there are ways that we know that if you are going to resolve a conflict, you need to have the right parties at the table. They need to have a way of talking with each other that goes beyond the sort of normal, either superficial dialogue or more intensive but not really paying attention to each other dialogue. But it's not necessarily that there is a guaranteed outcome in any way that you can have with conflict or with conflict resolution. I think the lesson that I keep getting in all the projects I work on is people who persist, people who stay at the table, people who are willing to keep listening even if they disagree with others, almost invariably end up with better outcomes than the people in the communities that don't do that. Well, there's a lot of excitement. I think there's a core group of people who've participated regularly, and then we keep getting new people as well, but I think the core group of people who really want to see this continue. And I think because of some of the outcomes ranging from what might seem minor, like the slogan, Frostburg, it really is cooler here, or to more substantial, the Adopt a Student programs, to what we hope is going to be happening tonight with a longer look at the idea of revitalizing the, I'm not sure what the name of it is, but the sort of town gown committee that used to be there, university community committee. I think that'll provide a good structure for continuing to have effective conversations about that. So my hope is that people will take the energy and continue to work with each other, even beyond when we complete the dialogues. I think it's one thing that I've learned in particular, that when communities, every community has had some loss or a series of losses, and every community has had some of their spaces that have been contested. There's just no part in the United States that hasn't had that happen. And my sense is that the communities that are willing to confront their past, that are willing to look at it, acknowledge it, offer regret when it's called for some of the losses that have occurred, but at least support and acknowledgement of losses even as they're moving forward. They do better, they're more resilient, they're stronger, they're healthier, they have more people engaged in civic life than those communities that don't address these, that cover them up, or that are unwilling to take a look at some of the more challenging situations that are occurring in the past and the present too. So all of my work has to do with communities that have some sort of problem. And oftentimes it's environmental, but environmental is pretty broad, and every environmental problem is a community problem. So it's really, you're dealing with community dynamics. And even though I teach, and we do research and write, et cetera, but really the core of what my institute does and what I do is working with these communities who have decided for whatever reason, either because there's a conflict or because they think that they can do better, they need to figure out a way to bring people that have different views together. So from coal mining issues to water quality issues to the Chesapeake Bay, to air quality, or to even issues that are outright not specifically related. We've done work on health and mental health, physical health. I'm trying to think of just a wide range of issues. I think that what presents is almost always the same challenge. There are people who feel some sort of grievance. Oftentimes it's people on all sides who feel some sort of grievance. Sometimes it's asymmetrical, so you've got some parties that have that grievance more than others, or parties who are afraid of losing something more than others. And it involves working with people who are willing to say, I would like to have us come out of this in better shape than we are now. I would like for us to be stronger. I would like for us to have resolved this issue and be able to become either the community that we were before or the community that we're striving to be, even if, if we've never been there before. So it's actually really exciting to be able to do that, because even though oftentimes you might feel what other people would say, that these people are acting at their worst, by the time they're working with us, at least they've made some movement, if not commitment, towards being at their best. And so how do we help people be at their best? And most of the time we're able to do that, because most of the time people want to behave well. They like to be engaged in better ways than they often are, in better ways than a lot of our public processes even allow them to be engaged. And a lot of times we're inventing, just like this dialogue. There was no Office of Dialogue, in the state of Maryland or in the community of Frostburg or at Frostburg State. So this is just an idea that people had, and saying, hey, I think we'd be better off if we were able to bring people together. And I think that's both a challenge, but also something I really enjoy doing.